everyone. I'm going to be hosting the next hour of Artist Talks. My name is Mark Fustel. I'm an independent curator, writer, and an editor, and part of the team with the Eyes that organize the Artist Talks at Paris Hotel. And so there are going to be 3 talks this hour with 3 wonderful, very different artists. I'll be starting to speak with Joanna Szproch, and then I'll be speaking with Anastasia Samoilova, and finally with Carolina Veritas. And so we'll be starting in about 1 minute.
That's okay. So I called him. I'm listening. He's a big adjacent. Stupid. Nice to meet us. Already started calling and opening up. But this requires some praise.
Okay, so we'll get started. So please, first of all, join me in welcoming Joanna Szproch. So I'm going to very briefly introduce Joanna, but we're going to be focusing on talking about her first book, which we have a copy of, which she has here, and we're going to pass it around so you can look at it while we are having our conversation. So Joanna is Polish, but lives and works in Berlin, and has done for over a decade. And we're here to discuss her first book, Alltagsfantasie. My pronunciation is probably
Alltagsfantasie.
Okay, thank you. Which you will see is an incredibly bold, multi-layered, colorful, vibrant project, and one that she has basically been making, I guess, shortly after she arrived in Berlin, so over many years.
And actually, before I moved to Berlin, okay. I started it, but I didn't know that it will turn out to be a book.
Okay, so even before. So my first question to you, Joanna, would be just, can you tell us what the title of the book means?
Of course. Alltagsfantasie means everyday fantasy, basically. And you can interpret it in many ways. My first interpretation, I would suggest, is just to find fantastic moments in everyday situations, which I treat as a remedy for everyday struggle, I would say, like this. So it's actually for everyone. But, of course, it's also very feminine. So I would also say that maybe I directed mostly for women, because we have difficulties to enjoy everything.
Okay, so we're going to see some images from the book now, and as you'll see as we're scrolling through these different excerpts from the book, this is a very multi-layered project. You use self-portraits, portraits of others, drawings, handwritten letters, old kind of family photographs or personal photographs. And this is really interesting, I think, because this genre of self-portraiture, is an important genre in photography, but the approach that you've taken is quite unusual and very multifaceted. So can you tell us a bit about how you started to combine all of these different elements?
So maybe first of all, I started photographing my friend in 2010, and it's her, and this is where the project, I think, started. But it started when I was still trying to be a fashion photographer. I was but I never actually made money with fashion, and maybe that was also a part of my frustration with fashion, that it was very exploitative. Like for exposure, I had to work and didn't have anything back. And she also was a model in fashion, and she was probably getting frustrated because of the same reason. And then I think 2012, I moved to Berlin, and and Berlin, of course, influenced me enormously because of its free art scene. And I gradually started losing interest for fashion, and our relationship, friendship, started evolving. And she was coming to visit me in Berlin. I was visiting her in Poland, and she was my muse. But she was becoming more my friend and muse. But still, I was not enough confident to photograph myself next to her, and there was some. And I at some point thought that I finished that project, but it was something lacking. And then I realized that I have to be next to her, be on the same kind of level, that like not like I'm exploiting her as a model, but or like we are just like I just wanted to show the bond between us, which is a little bit like sisterhood kind of, because she's a bit younger. um and then there was also my daughter involved, but I at some point didn't want to involve her. Like I didn't want to show my daughter there, to some extent. But my daughter was influenced by my photography. So there are some drawings of her, like naked woman, when she was maybe 10 or 11 years old. But they are very, I don't know, I love these pictures because they are at the same time very innocent and strong, even maybe in sexual way. But I think she wasn't aware of it. And I just want to finish in the end, though there's like last part of the book. It's just transfer from this fantasy I created with with Patricia, my muse, and I just wanted to leave that fantasy in my real life. So this last part of the book is just it's kind of more like documentary, I would say, but still in very fantasy style. But there are my pictures of my daughter eventually, and my ex-partner, and yes.
Well, that's really fascinating. I didn't realize that the self-portraits, which are such an important part of this project, actually is only something that kind of you added much later into the final book. I mean, I think this is another aspect that you just mentioned, which I find really interesting about this project, is that, you know, the female nude is a huge part of photographic history, but in general, that female nude has been through the male gaze. And so your project is not only through the female gaze, but it's through a very, I would say, almost antithetical gaze to what we are used to seeing. You know, this is not objectification. It's not even a trying to make something beautiful, but it feels much more playful, much more exuberant, much more complex in its different emotions that it brings up. So can you tell us a bit about, how consciously you were trying to do that, or how that sort of ends up being part of the project?
I think this thing is unconscious, but I think over those years, I was basically unlearning what I learned in art history, and this is kind of practicing it in the book. Um, well, when I take photos, I don't really think about it because I just see it. It's hard to explain. I just on the pictures what I see, but
I mean, maybe I can ask you a kind of follow-up question. In the essay that's in the book, Agatha,
Justin.
thank you. She describes the aesthetics of the project as glamour photography. And, you know, this is a kind of, I guess, a derogatory term a lot of the time. But I think a really interesting idea, and, you know, when you see the aesthetics of the book and of these images, I was curious to know, like, if you were inspired by this genre of glamour photography, or kind of how you developed this very specific aesthetic for the project.
Good question, and I will try to answer. The thing is, like, I really despise fashion at the moment because I think it's very pretentious, and in general, fashion industry is unsustainable, and so on and so on, and promotes only one type of body, and objectifies female body, and so on and so on. But what I love, what I learned by doing fashion, that I could create my fantasy worlds. And I think these tools I still use, right? I just transfer them to my everyday situations, basically. So, because what I actually dislike in fashion the most is this lie, it's fakeness. So actually, I want to show that actually everyday, I don't know, croissant is actually fantastic. I don't know. I don't know. Like, and the thing is, like, I really want to continue this question. What is real in our imagination, anticipation, whatever? We can actually connect with ourselves, like true selves, through this, and what is actually outside fake, that we actually think that it's real and it's actually an illusion. Like, I don't know, a romantic lie that we need, or need, like, to have like another half or something like that. Or, you know, or we will be rescued by a prince on the white horse, something like that.
We are already coming to the end of our conversation. I'm always taken aback by how fast these 15 minutes go, but we do have time for a question from the audience. If any of you have a question for Joanna.
So,
Any women perhaps would like to ask Joanna a question about the project? Okay, I will then ask you one more question. You mentioned before your daughter's involvement, and she appears in a couple of photographs at the end of the book. I'm curious to know how that worked. Did you have to convince her? Did she want to participate? And why did you choose to kind of integrate her into the book?
Give her a call now. I think that it's like hate and love relationship, because she was involved in, like, I was photographing her from her beginning, basically, and sometimes she enjoyed it, like, because she wanted to feel like a muse or a model, but sometimes she really hated it because it's so much work, basically. And I sometimes these photos, well, I don't know. I think she gets that it's important, and she's not enjoying it fully, but she will sacrifice for that. That kind of like this.
Well, thanks to her for her sacrifice, and thanks to you for speaking with me today and showing us your project.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I thank you, Joanna, and I'd now like to invite.
Just maybe I just want to also invite you tomorrow. I will be signing the book
Yes.
at 4
4:35 at the André Frère Base, which is directly next to us, and you can obviously go and see the book and probably speak with Joanna a bit after this as well.
I will be if somebody is just afraid of asking in the audience the question, I will be there, and I can gladly answer your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.